Hello and welcome to the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I'm your host. I'm Kurt, and today is Thursday, the 12th of November, 2020. And I just wanted to talk today about a subject of a blog post that I'm going to be writing called Voting Blind. The basic idea behind the blog post is this. When you decide who you are going to elect to a particular office, you must take the time to do the research behind who that individual is, and quite frankly, behind who their opponent is. And you have to cast a critical eye on both the person for whom you believe you're going to be voting and their opposition. And I urge you, quite frankly, to consider the stances of both individuals. And part of this, as I think I've said before in other videos, is that you need to decide what is important and you need to act, you need to vote, you need to decide, you need to look at the positions of people based on that decision. What is important? What's important? What do I need to think about? So as I've said before, if you happen to be an individual who doesn't support abortion or doesn't support late-term abortion or doesn't, various things you might support or not support. If you don't support loose fiscal policy, if you don't support socialism, and whether it's in medicine or in government in general, if whatever it is that you do or don't support, you need to take the time to research the people who you're looking at for a given office for which you're voting, and you need to come to some conclusions about what those people support. I saw a social media post in which somebody said, if I'd have known Joe Biden was talking about lockdowns, future lockdowns, I wouldn't have voted for him. And I thought to myself, have you been paying attention at all? This is something that's being said, has been said over and over and over again by both Mr. Biden and Kamala Harris. And if you look at his opposition in Donald Trump, he said basically the exact opposite. He said, look, I don't support more lockdowns. People are being hurt. Both people are, both the businesses and so forth are losing business. And quite frankly, people are losing jobs and people are having health issues and people are having physical issues and various other things. The point of all of this, okay, is that those individuals, who support the lockdown concept, first of all, everything that we're seeing right now indicates that they're confused in their policy. Because if you look at it, you'll see that we're currently experiencing spikes and lots of places still are locked down, still social distancing is in place and mask wear is in place as well. By the way, I wanted to welcome everybody aboard. If you're coming on from YouTube and Rumble and on the podcast, welcome aboard. This is what I'm trying to get across to people. This is what I'm trying to get folks to understand. This is that whole uninformed electorate thing coming back to bite people. When you could have seen things over and over again, right? And you chose either to ignore those things or to ignore the places from which they come. So here's the thing. If you pay attention to right-wing media and right-wing media only, you're just not very bright. Okay? Let's just get that out there. On the other hand, if you pay attention to the standard mainstream media and the standard mainstream media only, you're just not very bright. Let's just get that out there. You need to be looking at both positions. I don't support what the standard media says 90%, 85% of the time. I still pay attention to the standard media to some degree. And by the way, so does much of the right-wing media. Why do they do that? Because if you don't know what they're saying. And here's the thing. If you look at what the mainstream media says about the right-wing media, they're always talking about how wrong they are. It's almost never true that they say, yeah, they said something really good or really important here. Every once in a while it'll happen, but most of the time that's not true. If you look at what the right-wing media says, they'll say, yeah, and they were spot on when they said this. Don't get me wrong, there's a lot of no, they were wrong, no, they said things that weren't reasonable and so forth. But the point of all of this is your job, if you have a job as a voter, is to find out who supports what, to know what you believe in and what you care about, and to vote for people who are going to support those things. It just doesn't take a genius in the modern day to realize that If you're voting for people who are liberals in the United States, who count themselves liberals or progressives in the United States, typically Democrats, you're voting typically for something closer every day to socialism. Okay? If you're voting for people who are on the right, you're voting for something closer to socialism every day with many of those people. But you're voting for something that's less close to socialism when you vote Republican, when you vote on the right, when you vote conservative, than you are if you vote for Democrats. I don't like the fact that you don't really have a choice. You're going to vote for somebody who probably is going to some degree, support socialism, with a few notable exceptions. Right? There are a few notable exceptions here and there. Anybody who's libertarian is less likely to have political leanings that are socialist in nature. That having been said, again, even if you're voting between one person who's very socialist and one person who's moderately socialist, you're better off with a moderate socialist, typically, in my opinion, than you are in the heavy socialist. There are a lot of people who believe socialism is a good idea, and I would tell those people that you can look around the world and see what's happened when socialism has been ensconced in various countries in the world. Venezuela is an excellent example, and a lot of the Nordic countries will argue that they are not an excellent example of that. They have, quote, social safety nets, they have public health, they have high taxes, but they still have a private sector that's providing the wealth for their countries, and that's one of the biggest and most important things. Socialism does not support such an idea. Socialism says that everybody should own the means of production, and by that generally they mean the government should, because everybody can't. But here's what I'm trying to get at, right? Your job as somebody who's voting is to not vote blind. You need to be looking at what people are saying. Like I say, does Joe Biden say he's going to lock things down if the health experts say he ought to do so? Then if you don't want lockdowns, I suggest you don't vote for somebody like Joe Biden. Does Joe Biden say that they're coming for your guns if you vote him into office, and say he's going to appoint somebody like good old Beto O'Rourke as his, quote, gun czar? Well, then probably if you're a Second Amendment person, you don't want Joe Biden. And let me just tell you something. I own how many guns? I'm going to give you a show. I'm going to give you a show of how many guns I own. That many. 0. I own no guns at all. I am a staunch supporter of the Second Amendment, even though I own no guns. I'm not a supporter of people having illegal firearms, though I really question some of the definitions of illegality where firearms are concerned. But I support the Second Amendment, and as a result, in good conscience, forgive me for saying so, but I really cannot support somebody who doesn't support the Second Amendment as well. And what that means is, if you look at somebody like Joe Biden, sadly, what he says essentially is that assault rifles should go away. Well, try and find me a good definition for assault rifles, and maybe we'll talk. But the reality is you're not going to, because there isn't one. There isn't a good definition for that. High-capacity magazines should go away. I don't think you can really make that stick if you try, but even if you could, it's direct contradiction of the Second Amendment. I'm going to say something that lots of people don't want to hear, and then I'm going to get off of this subject. The Second Amendment doesn't limit what kind of arms the citizenry can or should own. It doesn't do that. It says you got the right to bear arms, and this is why. It supports something. It tells you why. That's all it does. Okay, now we need to get off of that subject, because the subject of this video is for you to make sure that you cast a critical eye in both directions before you make a choice about who it is that you're going to vote for in any kind of election. It's just that simple. So that's pretty much the message for today. Make sure that you do your due diligence. Make sure that you look at people. Make sure that you look at what people are saying and see if there's any truth to what they're saying or there isn't. Okay? Okay, so I'm out of time, and I'm going to go ahead and wrap things up. I hope you've had a good day. It is the end of my day. I have taken longer than I really wanted to do other things today, but I had to because I started a new job. Yes, this is my side gig, so that's the thing that I have to concern myself with as a primary thing. Okay, I've been happy to be able to get a chance to do this today, and hopefully we'll see you again tomorrow. Tomorrow will be Friday, the 13th of November of 2020, and hopefully you will have a good remainder of your day. The speaker on this edition of the Daily Summation is Kurt Schubert. Thursday, the 12th of November 2020. The Daily Summation is created for Kurt's Religion and Politics. Thanks for checking out this video. Remember that you can like it on YouTube and you can give it a rumble on Rumble if you want to do that. I have channels on both YouTube and Rumble. They are the Kurt's Religion and Politics channels. You can subscribe to either one of those if you want to do so. Remember, if you subscribe on YouTube, you probably want to click the notification bell in order to be notified of new content. If you want to see more from me, you can check me out on my blog. That's blogs.kpschubert.com, blogs.kpschubert.com. You can also see my Facebook page. That is Kurt's Religion and Politics on Facebook. You can check out my Twitter, Parler, and Minds.com accounts. My handle on all three of those is at kpschubert. That's at kpschubert. You can check out my podcast. The podcast is at podcasts.kpschubert.com. That's podcast.kpschubert.com. And finally, you can check me out on Patreon. And if you want to support me, that's probably one of the better places that you can do that. I am Kurt's Religion and Politics there. Thanks again for checking out this video, and hopefully we will see you again tomorrow.